Hey friends, last week, the Defend the Guard movement got more attention than ever before. Bigger than any TV interview, even bigger than my own appearance on Fox News or the Dave Smith podcast. This time, the spotlight was on my friend and longtime ally Scott Horton when he sat down for 3 full hours with Tucker Carlson on one of the most watched podcasts in the country. Not only did they break down 50 years of American foreign policy, but they zeroed in on our mission, Defend the Guard. The impact, hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube, millions more on Twitter, and people all over the country hearing our message spoken from one of our best allies. I want to walk through some of the highlights from the conversation and play a few of the clips and share my perspectives as someone who's lived this fight up close. Tucker Carlson is one of the only people in the major media willing to say what most Americans are thinking. He's become a clear voice for the real America First movement. And at this moment, he finally asks a question out loud that so many have been too afraid to ask about our endless wars.
And I just wonder, do you, since you work on this full time, do you imagine a time in our lifetimes where the attention of the U.S. government is drawn back to the United States? Some attempt is made to improve life here? Or
over their dead bodies, I mean, figuratively speaking, that it'll have to be a coalition of Americans who just will not stand for it anymore. I mean, we're already at the point, Tucker, where they would much prefer to back bin Ladenite suicide bombers and fly Predator and Reaper drones around than send the 3rd Infantry Division anywhere. They know we won't stand for it, right? Iraq War II, I think, was the last gasp for these large-scale land invasions. Yeah, we got the Vietnam syndrome again, and we don't want to do that. I mean, there's a huge movement in this country now called Defend the Guard, which is led by veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan. They're trying to get the state legislatures to pass laws forbidding the governor from transferring National Guard troops to the president for foreign combat without an official declaration of war from the Congress, which they know they'll never get. And these are guys who are just saying, enough of this. We're not doing this anymore. And they saw their boys die over there for real.
The Guard got screwed.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Folks, that's a big question. Will our leaders ever bring the focus back to America instead of chasing endless wars overseas? And what you just heard is the clearest answer I've ever seen on national media. Scott laid it out perfectly. Defend the Guard is the solution because it puts the power and responsibility for war back where it belongs with Congress. No more backdoor deployments, no more endless wars that nobody voted for. If Congress won't stand up and declare war, the National Guard stays home. That's accountability. And that's the whole reason we started this fight.
I mean, people don't remember, but before 2001, really 2003, the National Guard wasn't a joke exactly, but people did make fun of it. Weekend warriors, they're not really in the military.
They're like the secondary reserve.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And then the next thing you know, they're fighting a real war.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they signed up for that.
Yeah, no, they didn't. They clearly didn't. You joined the National Guard to sandbag rivers during floods.
Totally.
And
to
put
help
out
your country
forest
in
fires.
Emergencies, yes. But then to get, benefits and all that. I mean, whether that's a good system or not is another question, but that's the deal they signed.
That's right.
And next thing you know, these guys from every little town in America are fighting a hot war in Iraq. I mean, I saw it.
Now I'm going to pause right here for just a moment. I'm going to address this idea head on. As somebody who served in the United States Marine Corps, the United States Army, and deployed to Afghanistan as a member of the Idaho Army National Guard from 2005 to 2007, I can tell you firsthand, the National Guard is not a joke, and it's never been just weekend warriors or sandbag fillers. The men and women I served with in the National Guard are some of the most professional, capable warfighters in the entire world. They can fight and win America's wars, and history has proven that time and time again. Our argument isn't that the National Guard shouldn't be used to defend this country. In fact, the opposite is true. The National Guard is the right force to fight and win America's wars, but only when those wars are properly authorized by the representatives of the people through a declaration of war in Congress. Nobody who raises their hand and volunteers to serve, willing to put their life on the line, should ever be considered a joke or an afterthought. Now, I know Tucker's intention wasn't to insult anyone, but I want to be clear about the respect that I have for every Guard member who has served. That said, he's absolutely right that before George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and Don Rumsfeld started using the Guard as an expeditionary force, the Guard was primarily a reserve force. It wasn't until the era of endless wars and global interventions that the Guard was forced into the role of permanent overseas deployments. So yes, the Guard can do the job, but it's Congress's job to make sure that it's the right fight for the right reasons and done the right way.
Wow, the Guardsmen are doing that?
Yep. And getting suicide bombed, right? Going through the absolute worst
dying.
of it.
Oh, for sure.
With the rest of the guys, yep.
Do you know what percentage of Americans killed in Iraq were Guardsmen?
No, I don't.
but it was not insignificant.
Yeah, no, it was plenty.
Here, Tucker asks a fair question that you don't hear very often. What percentage of National Guardsmen were killed in the global war on terror? It's important to understand the parameters. The global war on terror started in 2001 with the authorization of use for military force. Congress basically handed over its responsibility to the president, letting the executive branch decide when and where to send American troops. That's how we got into these open-ended, undefined wars. And since that time, more than 45% of the American boots on the ground in the global war on terror operations tied to those AUMFs have been from the National Guard. And according to the Defense Casualty Analysis System, in a report compiled back in 2020, 743 National Guardsmen died in the global war on terror operations between October of 2001 and July of 2020. That includes 499 deaths in Operation Iraqi Freedom, 218 in Operation Enduring Freedom, and others in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. The total number of U.S. military deaths in these same operations was over 7,000. So the National Guard deaths accounted for about 10.6% of the total. And if you combine the Guard and the reserve forces, the number's up over 18%. At the height of the global war on terror, when we had the most troops in theater all over the world, Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, Syria, the Philippines, the Horn of Africa, etc., the National Guard made up over 48% of the boots on the ground. And the number that's most often ignored, over 30,000 suicides by veterans of these wars from 2001 through 2022. That's the real cost. And that's why we have to get this right. Scott got it right. The Defend the Guard Act is a simple concept that's actually already enshrined in the federal law and in the Constitution. What we're trying to do is to make sure that the state law mirrors and enforces what the federal law already says. The federal government absolutely has the authority to call the National Guard into federal service to fight America's wars. But here's the catch. The Constitution and federal law are clear. The Guard can only be activated for overseas combat if Congress has officially declared war. That requirement has been completely ignored for the last 25 years. Defend the Guard is state-based legislation that puts a legislative prohibition in place. It forces the governor to withhold the state National Guard from being released into federal service to fight in foreign wars of choice unless Congress has first done its job and issued a formal declaration of war. The law is clear. Congress has to put their name on the line before the National Guard puts their boots on the ground in another country. This isn't just an idea. It's a growing movement. Defend the Guard bills have been introduced in over 30 states and have already passed the Idaho Senate, the Virginia House of Delegates, the New Hampshire House of Representatives, and the Arizona Senate 3 times. Hundreds of thousands of Americans are supporting Defend the Guard through social media, by signing petitions, and by enlisting in this movement. If you want to join us, go to defendtheguard.us and click on Enlist in the Movement to get regular updates on the fight for Defend the Guard. We are building a movement, not just for today, but for every future generation who might wear the uniform. We owe it to them to get this right. Visit defendtheguard.us, sign up, and add your name to this cause. Tell your state legislators where you stand, share this video, and let's make sure that the next time America goes to war, it's for the right reasons.